Herkese merhaba. Ben Mehmet Uğur Ekinci, SETA adına herkese hoş geldiniz diyorum.
My name is Mehmet Uğur Ekinci. On behalf of SETA, I would like to welcome you all. The Foreign Policy Directorate of the Foundation for Political, Economic and Social Research is organizing this event. Up until today, so many events have been held under the framework of SETA regarding Syrians and the refugees and separately EU relations, but we have never discussed the Syrian refugee crisis and the EU relationship up until today together, and their impact on each other has never been discussed here in SETA. Last week, so many meetings regarding Turkey and EU have been held last week because now the European Union is realizing how real the Syrian crisis is, and new plans and new projects are being sought and looked for, new methods are being looked for, and this will have an impact on the Turkey-EU relations in the soon future. Of course, the refugee issue has become a very hot topic of Turkey's agenda in the recent years, not only for the foreign relations but also for the socio-economic structure of the country itself. Let me talk about some statistics briefly. Currently, approximately 4 million Syrians emigrated out of their country to other countries, and this number can increase in the future. As of October 15, the officially registered Syrians in Turkey are 2,200,000 and more, a lot Iraqi people as well. The number of asylum seekers living in the Turkish camps is more than 260,000, and Turkey spent almost $8 million to meet the demands of these refugees in Turkey up until today. When we come to the perspective and the attitude of the European Union towards the refugees, European Union actually allocated partial and half solutions until August 2015. But after August 2015, via Mediterranean Sea or via the Balkan countries, initiated the march towards Europe. This created a deep impact on the Balkan countries first, and then the whole Europe countries. In October, different institutions and organizations of the European Union held some meetings, and they are now exerting efforts and decided to cooperate to allocate responsibilities and share responsibilities among member countries. Especially, they said that they will implement the readmission agreements in a more strict way. But Turkey plays a key role here because we know that many more number of refugees will go to Europe via transiting Turkey. Therefore, EU is looking for close relationship and cooperation with Turkey. And actually, a draft action plan for Turkey was announced by the European Union, although it is not signed or published officially yet. Especially with the formed new government in Turkey in the future, there will be intense meetings between Turkey and European Union, we believe. And today we will discuss how the refugee crisis will affect the Turkey-EU relationships. We have three guests today. I don't want to take any further of the speaker's time, therefore I would like to give the floor to first speaker. Our first speaker is the Istanbul Member of Parliament of Justice and Development Party, born in 1975 in Bayburt. He lived in Germany as of the age of 1, graduated from Faculty of Law from Köln University, and as a law practitioner, he dealt with civil society issues in Germany, and Yenerol is a member of Amnesty International, the head of the board of management of the Migration Council, and he is the founder of the Association Against Discrimination. In the last both elections, he elected as the Member of Parliament to the Turkish Grand National Assembly, and of course he will be one of the most active parliamentarians in Turkey regarding Turkey-EU relations, and I wonder what he has to say. You have 20 minutes, Mr. Mustafa Yeneroğlu. Yes, please.
Evet. Ben de sorun devam ediyor ama. Evet. Kusura bakmayın biz de bir krizle başlamış olduk. Ama hemen kısa zamanda atlattık teknik krizi.
Apologies, we started the meeting with a crisis as well, but that was a technical crisis and we get over it soon, not like the European Union crises. Well, I see many faces. It's pleasing to see such a big crowd. I would like to welcome you
En
all.
şaşkın hissettiğim konuların başında
I also would like to
Türkiye'nin
underline that this is one of the most important topics
göç
for me
politikaları
in Turkey. This is the topic that I
mültecilerin
underline all the
noktasında
time. For example, the
aslında
migration policies
mültecileri
and
destekleyeceği
refugee
sonucunda
policies of Turkey
hazır
are
bir
very
göçmenlik
important.
olmaması
And looking at
sebebiyle
the Republic period
siyasi
of
akımların
Republic of Turkey, she doesn't
olan
have that
durumlarla
much
değil bunlar.
experience in refugees, etc. Therefore, this topic has not been a hot topic for the political agenda up until yesterday. Up until yesterday, Turkey was losing its people to migration. Turkish people were leaving Turkey with migration. It was a transition country, it was not a destination country. Today, Turkey is a destination country for refugees to remain and stay
Tabii
permanently,
avutabilirler
but it
fazla
is
üzerinde
also
durulması
a
gereken
very
ülke.
important transition route
Önemli bir
today.
pozisyonda
Therefore,
ülke.
European Union
Şimdi
acknowledges that
burada
Turkey
şunları da
plays an
ifade
important
etmek
role
gerekiyor.
within the given context.
Türkiye'nin
I also would like
özellikle
to mention
göç veren
some
bir
other
ülke olması
things.
sebebiyle
For
göç
example,
alma noktasında çok fazla bir
due to
tecrübesi
the fact that
olmadığı için bu
Turkey
alandaki
is giving migration rather than receiving migration, Turkey does not have
yaşanan
lots of experience in receiving migration
raporlarda
and
buna
receiving refugees.
dikkat
2 days
çekiliyor.
ago, for example, the
Soruşturma
European Union report was announced, and this was underlying the same thing regarding the refugee policies and regarding the legal regulations. Turkey inevitably have some insufficient parts. In the beginning of 2000,
ama günümüz
we didn't
itibariyle
even have the capability of producing and generating policies. But today we increased our economy, we improved our socioeconomic structure, and we became an important actor
etken
in
olan ve
decision
Avrupa'nın
making
içinde
process, in policy
son
making
yıllarda
process.
özellikle
Now we are playing an important
Türkiye
role,
üzerinde
and
gayet olumsuz
especially
bir
regarding the
politikayı
recent years
geliştirmekte.
of the European Union,
Hatta
we
Avrupa
understand
Birliği
that European Union is
üyeleri
using a marginalizing language
adayı olmasına
against
rağmen
Turkey. They
neredeyse
are all
yüksek
making
ülkelerde
us the other.
anlamda da
And although we are a
ötekileştirilmekte.
candidate country, we are
Söz konusu.
recognized
Dolayısıyla
as of, I don't know,
son
Russia.
yıllarda
We are being marginalized,
başlayan
we are
AB üyeliği
isolated,
adaylığı
and we are
sürecinde hiçbir
being
şekilde ayrımcılar
objected.
gibi
We
değerlendirilmedi.
have initiated our candidate
Hatta son yıllarda
process,
daha net bir biçimde
but we have never been evaluated
aday
like other
üyeliğinin
candidate countries,
konusu
especially in the recent
aradaki
a few
uzlaşma
years.
tamamen
We
başkalaştı.
have understood
Üzerinden
that even the
tartışma konusu
membership
hepimiz
of
biliyoruz.
Turkey to EU
Şimdi
differentiated, and
özellikle
the topics were
Suriye,
differentiated and changed up until
sadece
today.
Suriyeliler değil, aynı zamanda Irak'tan gelen de zannedersem
The
200 bin
Syrian
üzerinde
refugee crisis,
mülteci var.
well, not just
Irak'tan gelen
Syrians, I believe
mülteciler
more than
başta
300,000
olmak gerekiyor.
refugees came from Iraq, and more than
Hiçbir yok.
50,000 refugees came from Afghanistan. It's not just
Bahsediyoruz.
Syria.
Bunların
So
aynı zamanda
today,
Türkiye'de
we are talking about almost 2-3 million refugees, and regarding their legal status in Turkey, we are always discussing problems because the legal regulations of Turkey
bunlarla ilgili de
is not
sığınma
recognizing
söz
the
konusu
refugees
olmakta
coming
olarak
from the Middle
değerlendiriyoruz.
East.
Bu sebeple
Of course, these are now having the temporary refugee status,
varsayılan veyahut da orta vadede
and for
düşünülmesi
that
gereken
reason,
kalıcılık
the
boyutu
assumed
itibariyle
or
bunlarla
mid-term
ilgili
planned
entegrasyon politikaları Türkiye'nin
residentiality of
geleceğe
those
ne kadar
people
tamamen Avrupa
will need
Birliği
some integration policies. Up until yesterday, Turkey never knew anything about integration policies. We were the we were being subject to integration policies since we were the people who were going to Europe. But as of today, now we are in the first hand experiencing the refugee crisis, and we are a country again in the first hand experiencing a test, like a test. In this framework, coming back to the Syrians, as I stated earlier, I can say that up until today, European Union was not treating Turkey like a normal candidate country. Uh, for example, the draft, when you look at the draft action plan of European Union for Turkey, you again realize that Turkey is not treated as a candidate country, rather it is treated like a buffer zone country, like a neighboring at the borders, external borders, who will protect European Union from external threats, and Turkey was only recognized as a security buffer zone. I can give examples to that as well. When we look at the draft action plan, we see two main titles. The first title is to convince Syrian refugees to stay in Turkey, and second title is more strict control and prevention over those who try to illegally go to European Union via Turkey. Well, as you know, regarding convincing Syrian refugees staying in Turkey, Turkey has to work on legal regulations. It has to develop some support mechanisms for Syrians, and at the same time, the combat against irregular migration should be improved by Turkey so as to prevent Syrian people to go to European Union. This is all what draft action plan is about. At the subtitles there are keeping Syrian people under registration or benefiting from the internal market or access to social rights, and it's all about relief for the Syrian refugees, and the fundamental logic behind this is to eliminate any kind of migration towards the European Union. And one of the most fundamental things is, of course, improving the border security and coast guard coastal security. Well, up until 2014, there was a model for the control over the coastal areas, and $104 million was the allocated budget for coastal areas security. By the way, the total budget of the EU member countries is $150 billion, and all the member states in the European Union has I cannot say the number. Was it million or billion? I'm not sure. But let me say 6.4 trillion Turkish liras. So maybe 100 billion euros. This was just the budget of the Coast Guard. And they said that 100,000 refugees were protected from death. But this fund was cancelled due to financial reasons, because the only matter is not for these people to enter the European Union. After entering European Union countries, these refugees has to be taken care of by the countries. For example, they have to find accommodation, they have to find care. And the European Union and all the member countries were rejecting this, and actually deliberately they are leaving and abandoning these people to death in the sea, and they are trying to deter the people. They say if we collect these people, if we save these people, if we do not eliminate these people, more and more people will enter European Union. They know it. Therefore, in order to deteriorate and in order to change the minds of the refugees, they just leave them to death. And it is actually very difficult, very hard to believe. But we have to remember this. Why am I talking about these things?
konuları da ele aldığımız takdirde, onları da incelememiz
Because I
takdirde
believe the
belli
draft
başlı
action
şeyler
plan
dikkate
will
alınması
bring some
gerekiyor.
issues on the
Özellikle
shoulders of Turkey,
madem
and a similar
Türkiye
logic will
eylem
be
planı şimdiye
faced.
kadar
What is
Türkiye'nin
that same
Avrupa
logic?
Birliği adalığı
In the
sürecinde
emergent action plan
biliyorsunuz yeniden
of the
uluslararası
EU,
alanlar açıldı. Bunlarla ilgili ciddi
as you
engeller
know,
var.
up
İşte
until today,
Güney
14
Kıbrıs'ta
out
bulunan
of
diğer bazı
24
ülkelerin katılımıyla
chapters
ilgili
were
süreçte
opened in
özellikle en
the
öncelikli
candidateship
ele
process of
almamız
Turkey. There
gereken
were so many
işte
concerns regarding the eastern part of
e,
Turkey, and Turkey
anayasal
was
düzenlemeler
always being
konusunda
criticized
özgürlükler
by the
meselesi
European Union
açılmasını
regarding the
diliyoruz. Buna
constitutional
şu anda bakın her
regulations
şeyin
or the
sonucunda
fundamental
gündemimizde
freedoms.
konuşmalar
Those
arasında
chapters are not
özgürlüklerle
opened.
ilgili
But
çekişmelerini muhafaza ediyor.
Chancellor
Diğer
Merkel
meselelerde
also
ise bilhassa
mentioned in the
bakalım. Bu
recent
da
days
biraz daha
that
ifade edildiği üzere
trade-related
Türkiye'nin
issues
cephesi olarak
and
başlamış.
trade-related
Bu da
chapters should be
meseleleri
opened rather
AB'nin
than the
şu anda
humanitarian issues, which is the
yaptığı
same
Türkiye
logic.
illegallerin temelinde
For the
dışa
European
kontrol
Union,
mantığı yatmakta.
at
Yani
the
Türkiye
basic
bakış
of the
açısında
negotiations
Dublin
that they carry
Anlaşması'nın
out together with
iddialı
Turkey,
anlaşmasının
they have
temel
the
mantığı
intention of
şimdi
damage
Avrupa
control.
merkezinde
For
bulunan
example,
güçlerin
the
dengesi,
Dublin Agreement, the
Avrupa
fundamental
Birliği'ne
logic behind the
mültecilerin
Dublin
akınını
Agreement
engellemek için
was
sınır ülkeleri,
to
güvenlikli ülke olarak, güvenlikli ülke
prevent
kavramı şu an
refugee
tartışmalı çok
intake
önemli bir
by
kavram.
the strong
Güvenlikli
European
ülke
countries.
olarak
For example,
değerlendirdikleri
we say
Avrupa Birliği
secure
içerisindeki ülkelerin
country.
mültecilere
It is a
bakış açısı.
very
Arkasından işte
different,
niye
this difficult
bunlar
thing
Almanya'ya,
to
Fransa'ya
say
gelmiyor?
secure
Herkesin
country. The
temizlenmesi
intention
gerekiyor
behind
denmesi. Hatta ve hatta
all of these
sınırları
activities
ciddi
is
manada
not
kontrol
to have
edemeyen
the refugee
sınır
border on the
ülkeleri
shoulders of the
eskiden
Germany or
yine
France,
mültecilere
and
bakıldığı
they
zaman
are also
kararlı
punishing
daha
the
rigid politikalar
bordering
izliyordu.
countries who
Mültecilerin
cannot
ülkeye
have a
girememesi
good control
için.
over their
Bunun mesela
borders. So
Yunanistan'ın
they are
da
actually
sahip
externalizing the
olduğu
refugees. They are not
elemanlardan
letting them in. For
lastik
example,
botu,
the Coast Guard
denizcileri
officials
içinde
of
mahsur olan
the
lastik botu
Greece,
patlatıp
the country
insanları ölüme
Greece,
terk etmesi gibi bütün insanlığın
are
gözünün önünde
uh,
cereyan eden hadise temelinde
inflating and
Yunanistan'ın
pumping and exploding
içerisinde
the
ama
rubber
mantığı
boats
yatmakta.
in the
Dolayısıyla
Mediterranean Sea.
bunları
So
özellikle
this
ifade
is the
ettiğimde
pure
Türkiye'nin
logic of the
güvenlikli
European Union. They are leaving people
inşaatları
to death in the sea by
noktasında
penetrating their rubber boat, the
çok
Greece,
haklı
I mean.
sebeplerle de
So
birlikte
at the humanitarian
gelişmekte olan
perspective,
ülkelere
yes, there are many
Türkiye'yi
righteous
şiddetle destekledikleri
reasons
bulunan en son
behind some of the activities,
duruşma raporunda
but
da gördük.
it is
Avrupa'nın
not
ülkeleri
okay
aslında
to
kendi menfaatleri
receive
içinde
so harsh
bunları
criticism
nasıl
from European
kısa zamanda
Union, whereas they
göz
are
ardı
protecting
ettikleri
their
oluyor.
own
Bunu en
interests,
son eylem planında da
and
gördük.
we
Eylem
can see
planında
how in a
belirlenen
short time they can
komiser
ignore
yardımcı,
these
ABD
facts.
Dışişleri
We have
Çalışma
seen the
komiser
action plan.
yardımcısı
Action
olarak
plan is on the media today.
AB
The
Bakanı
Deputy Commissioner of the European Union, one of the commissioners,
eğer Türkiye
actually made a proposal to our Ministry for European Union to smoothen and soften the action plan. They said if Turkey has a more positive attitude towards the demands of the European Union, then they will be able to soften the language of the action plan. In addition to the normative claims of the European Union, here at the point of the priorities and the interest of the European Union, we see European Union is changing their attitude. The real reason why the chapters are not being opened was mentioned the criticism against Turkey, but today those criticisms can't be used as a leverage for negotiation. The fundamental logic under the Dublin Agreement is to prevent refugee intake by the strong EU countries, and the burden is mostly shouldered by the bordering, external bordering countries. What is the European Union doing right now? Turkey is offering a burden because neighboring countries, Bulgaria and there is Greece, but European Union is actually expanding the border by including Turkey. In de facto, they are including Turkey to the Dublin Agreement, but Turkey is not a candidate, is not a member country yet. But Turkey is responsible for protecting European Union and its borders. So it is a totally security perspective. They are actually underlying that, EU, I mean, when I say they, underlying that they are not seeing Turkey as a candidate country at all. When you look at the past of the European Union and their past mistakes, especially during the Arab Spring, we can say that they are very sensitive about the internal stability of the countries. In the long run, Turkey is being recognized like a total country camp for refugees, but the employment and stability of the long run Turkey can be under danger. But the enriched and fruitful and high welfare European countries should also take some responsibility in parallel with their nomadic issues. On the other hand, some new negotiations were also mentioned. For example, financial support, 2 billion was the mentioned support as far as we read on the media. But let me tell you, currently only for only for 270,000 refugees living in the Turkish camps, approximately 8 million, $8 billion is spent already. So it's not a very realistic support. It's not a very realistic financial support. Apart from that, I can say that we needed to put into practice and enact some agreements earlier. For example, Turkish people living in Germany also have some rights, and their rights are verified by the court decisions. So, from a legal perspective, those countries who are criticizing Turkey are not also complying with these decisions in their own court decisions. And I also would like to say that briefly, Dublin Agreement in the name of humanity is a disaster. It is strong countries punishing weak countries and strong countries putting burden on the weak countries, and not equal allocation of responsibility among EU countries. It's a disaster. And they are evaluating the readmission agreement totally as a positive approach for Turkey being a secure country, but it is a risky approach because in parallel with the Dublin agreement, the entry country of the refugee has to be a secure country. If it's not a secure country, then in other secondary, tertiary countries that they are marching on land, they can seek asylum and look for asylum. But in the Dublin Agreement, if the refugee entered a country via land but not from a secure country, then the European Union countries cannot refoulement, it is called refoulement, they cannot send back the refugees. So they are evaluating Turkey as a buffer zone so as to prevent the entry of the refugees into the European Union countries. If they are not doing this, well, they are doing this because it fits their interests.
Ve Türkiye'nin demokratikleşme sürecini ilerletmiş bir ülke
The
olarak
problems
Türkiye'yi
in
takdir etme adına
Turkey
bunlar yapılmıyor. Tam tersi bu söz
is
konusu
now
olan
being
stratejinin
overcame,
bir
but they
gereği
are
olarak
not
bu
trying to
ortaya
congratulate Turkey on the achievements that Turkey achieved in the last years. It's just for their own interest. And Turkey is remembered only during crises, and the cooperation is only built for interest purposes, for tactical purposes, and most of the items mentioned in the emergent action plan is not in parallel with the interests of Turkey. Not only for Turkey, but we can also say that it is against, it is an attitude against the whole European Union attitudes. And
tabii diğer bir husus katılım
and behaviors.
müzakerelerinin asıl
If I have time, I would like to continue. Another issue is the accession negotiations. From Turkey's perspective, even there is a more priority agenda even before the action plan, and those are the progression of the accession negotiations. I have checked an EU report recently, and regarding Turkey, there was a sentence as follows: progressing progression talks. Even the sentence is an empty sentence. So you are trying to progress something that you are doing to progress. It's a mess. And sometimes I think, I mean, I have lived in Europe all my life, and at the basis of such an unserious, non-serious attitude, I don't understand how not serious you recognize us, so that so not serious you treat us. Thank you very much.
Teşekkürler Sayın Yeneroğlu. Normatif değerleri
Thank you, Mr. Yeneroğlu. He said that the normative values of the European Union is being reminded by Turkey to the EU today. So under some special circumstances, the normative values can be disregarded by the biggest advocates of the same value from time to time. Many questions come to our mind. We are now taking those questions as a note. During the question and answer session, I would like to give the floor to the second speaker. Our second speaker is Emre Gönen, a lecturer at Bilgi University. He is the former Secretary General of the Economic Development Association, and he is a deputy rector, consultant to the rector at Bilgi University regarding the European Union and Turkey relations. Environmental history and sustainability are the major topics that he is carrying out. Distinguished Chair, thank you very much. I would like to say hello to every one of you. The weather is depressing, the topic is even more depressing, and we are together here today. But before start, I would like to say a couple of things. First of all, distinguished member of the parliament, I don't want to correct him. Let me say, I will paraphrase his words. I will not correct him, but I will rephrase his words. Turkish people became a migration people after the foundation of the Turkish Republic. Receiving migration is the foundation of Turkish Republic since the beginning of its history. Because people were the subjects of the Ottoman Empire. From Balkans, from Anatolia, there are some Russian subjects, but Muslim people. All of these people migrated into the Republic of Turkey when the Republic was founded. Until 1960s in Istanbul, in Sirkeci district, there was a migration house where the immigrants coming to Istanbul can spend their nights until they find a residential accommodation. And in the beginning, they accepted to be a Turk, and they were loyal to the Republic of Turkey. After they came to Turkey, they became loyal citizens of the Republic of Turkey. We received 40,000 Pomaks at the end of 1940s from Bulgaria. When there was a war in Chechenistan, we received migration, actually young people who we never knew that they were Chechen people. They went to war to fight against Russia. Apart from the Iraq, Turkmenian, we did not receive migration from Middle East. What is new is that that we receive migration from Middle East. But up until today, we received migration all around the world, and we owe our existence to receiving migration up until today. For example, my grandmother came from Zlatograd, other grandmother came from Kosovo, so most of our people are Balkan migrants coming to Turkey after the foundation of the Turkey. The new part of the new migration wave is the is the fact that they have an Arab identity who will not accept the upper Turkish identity like Kurdish people. Second of all, was Turkey a country who gives migration to outside? Not until 1961. But between 1961 to 1972, 73, 74, one after another, European Union countries actually imported labor force. They imported labor force to our country, so as to speak. Another second migration was the political migration. People went to other countries from Europe. 510,000 people, and more than 180,000 of them went to the Federal Republic of Turkey, Holland, Belgium, some Switzerland. They received migration from Turkey after the coup d'etat, September 12th, 1980 in Turkey. They were like guest workers. I mean, they were guests as long as they can serve to the labor force of the country, and when they are retired, they will be just guests for the European Union. So this is what I'm trying to paraphrase of the first speaker. Today, in the European Union, there are important Turkish people. They are called Euro-Turks, for example. In the Federal Republic of Germany, they have the real Turkish diaspora in Europe. I believe almost 3 million is the population. And another Turkish diaspora that can be compared to the one in Germany. You see, they are quite peaceful, quite positive models that was conducted on us. We are not underlying the importance of this enough. Until 1993, 1994, we followed the existence of Turkish diaspora in Germany from magazine media. And it was about Turkish businessmen who were corrupting and who were losing their jobs. It was something to be ashamed of. Anyway, well, you have criticized the European Union very harshly. It was like, oh my God, you harshly criticized the European Union. Probably you will be elected in the parliament and you will have to deliver such speeches. That's why you're talking like this, I think. In the past, the member, Europe, 6 or 7 out of 12 members of the European Union were from Cyprus or Greece or Turkey. I mean, both parties should discuss their interests, their benefits, their interests in a democratic environment. But today, we are initiating and facilitating harsh discussions, unfortunately. If you allow me, with all due respect, I would like to remind you another thing, which is Rize. Rize is a province in Turkey, in the Black Sea. In 1978, we asked something from the European Union. There was terrorism in Turkey, and those people who were leaving Turkey to go to Bulgaria, for example, were not followed up. And the Turkish government, during the coup d'etat of the October 12th, asked European countries to apply a visa implementation on Turkey. For example, between Germany and France, there was the Strasbourg city, like a border between the countries. I studied there at the Strasbourg University. And back in the time, there was no Turkish grocery in France. We were going to Germany to buy Turkish sucuk, Turkish salami, Turkish white cheese from Turkish groceries in Germany, and we would go back to France. By use of public transportation, I used to go to Kegel without passport. I used to make my grocery and come back to home. And suddenly they asked a separate visa to leave France and another separate visa to enter Germany. Out of nowhere, suddenly. It was a disaster, and we were subject to that kind of agony. For example, 29 students, children's, uh, 29 children living in France will go to a school trip to Germany. 28 of them can go to Germany to a school trip, whereas the one lost Turkish boy cannot go to their for a school trip because she didn't have a visa. For example, regarding the visa fees, if you remember at all, in the beginning it was gratis, it was for free, it had no charge at all. But today, visa is not for free. So this negotiation, like a gambling, was conducted by the European Union, and Turkey asked for a readmission agreement. We signed the readmission agreement. Now the opposing parties should fulfill their responsibilities. This visa was supposed to be liberalized gradually until 2015 and then abolished at last. Not the freedom for circulation, but what we mean in the European Union is that you can demand a job in one country of the European Union, or you can offer your services. For example, opening a grocery. This is something else. The other one is only the freedom to travel on the condition that you have a passport or an ID. Every country, with visa or without visa, with passport or without passport, every country can prevent somebody entering their country. Therefore, I cannot understand how visa system is convincing. They give me 3 or 5 years Schengen visa, or in 1985 I'm talking about, after the Dublin Agreement. I mean, I can work my way out. But in the past, people who managed to go to Europe were considered as somebody who has been to Europe. The whole family were leaving them in the departure, and the whole family was welcoming them at the airport when they come back. It was such a huge event, like going to Mecca for Hajj, for they just like pilgrims. They can bring some special souvenirs from Mecca, but people were asking questions and wondering, what did my relative bring me from Europe trip? Chocolate or anything else? Anyway, to come back to the subject, I would like to say that we are in the customs union. The goods can circulate freely, but people cannot circulate freely. They cannot sell their products freely, etc. Third of all, regarding the border control and border security, in the last progression report of Greece, there it is mentioned that Greece should cooperate with Turkey for the collaborative protection of the borders. Yes, I agree with this, but Greece rejects this. Common or joint coast guard and joint patrols are rejected by Greece. Only for one reason. Why? How can a Turkish Coast Guard boat enter Greece territorial waters? Well, we have to reach an understanding or a consensus. Either we are an alliance country within EU or NATO, or like South Korea and North Korea, we are quite the opposite regimes, different from each other, and until one of us no longer exists, the other cannot catch a break. Okay, how can we cooperate with Greece? You cannot. Via Frontex, the Portugal Coast Guard will come to Mediterranean Sea so as to reject or avoid any conflict between Turkish Coast Guard and Greece Coast Guard. Well, this does not work. This is not functional. This is a very serious problem. I mean, probably I also wonder what people has to say about this, but hopefully we will discuss in the future as well. Lastly, I would like to say that if somebody wants to immigrate, you cannot stop that person. Second of all, there are two migration routes towards the developed countries of Europe: England, Germany, and Sweden, mostly receiving refugees. First of all, they come from Africa, from the sub-Saharan, southern Sahara countries, especially after the climate change. There is a sustainable survival problem in Africa. They are escaping from that. Or in Morocco, for example, Spain has Ceuta and Melilla like a colonized area. When you come to that territory, you are on the territory of Spain. They come to there in Morocco. Or Lampedusa Island around Tunisia and Libya in the bay. It is very far away from Italy, but it's an Italian territory. When you are on that island, you can seek asylum because you are on EU land. These are the African immigrants coming from these two routes. They have financial drivers behind the immigration. The second biggest route, which is a big problem for us, is the route on Turkey. Those are the people, they have never wanted to migrate, but in order to save their lives and save their dignity, they had to migrate. 2.5 million of them are in Turkey and they are permanent. Without any EU talk, we call them asylum seekers. We cannot grant them any status, but seriously, we have to sit together with them and create a perspective. Of course, the Turkish government conducted serious efforts so that they can live and survive in dignity. And we have to underline that Turkey let and saved 2.5 million people's lives and dignities by keeping its borders. Maybe we do not have a lot to share, but we share what we have. Maybe we do not have great employment rates, but we share what we have. It's not that difficult. If Turkey can open its doors to 2.5 million people, then Greece or other countries have double GDP, double than Turkey. So they can actually have these people. And when they corrupt, when they are financially underburdened, the European Union is financially supporting this. In politics, everything is brought on the table and it is negotiated and discussed. But while we are negotiating, we have to say that the only thing that we lack and that we are insufficient is the fact that we are joking around considering the human trafficking, human smuggling. Who is selling the rubber boats? Who is selling the sea boats? I have never read anyone taken under custody or detained. Of course, when you arrest one people, the human trafficking will not stop. But these are deteriorating the morale of Turkey. You have to combat and fight against human smuggling. If you can do that, then in the international platform you will be the main actor, not the one who is being led by others. In parallel with the Turkish laws, we have to combat against human smuggling, and sorry for exceeding my time. Regarding what you said, lastly, I would like to make a contribution. Regarding human smuggling, Turkey is in a bad position, and Turkey is always making advices and recommendations. But to be frank, one boat is enough to go from Turkey to Greece. Maybe that's why, thousands of euros are allocated to whom? Maybe that's why Turkey is pointed like a scapegoat by the European Union. The only thing I'm saying is that Turkey has to take serious actions against combat smuggling. Thank you very much. Now I would like to give the floor to our third speaker. Our third speaker will deliver his speech in English. Therefore, if you need any kind of earphones, you can obtain them from the entrance of the hall for Turkish translation. Dr. Michael Lüders, he is one of the leading Middle East experts of Germany, studied Arabic language and literature in Damascus and then political sciences, and had doctorate degree on Egypt. For a long time, he was the Middle East journalist of Die Zeit Gazette of Germany. He is a political economic consultant and journalist living in Berlin. He was in Turkey briefly ago, but he will go back to Germany, I believe, and by benefiting from this opportunity, we will lend an ear to them. We would like to thank him very much for coming here. Condolences, he said, but he didn't speak to the microphone, so I didn't understand. Condolences to you for what? I'm sorry.
I can take it in my hand, yeah. It's open? Yeah. Yes, hello. Well, first of all, I would like to thank you very much that I have the occasion to talk to you this morning, and I really deeply apologize for not being able to talk to you in Turkish. I've met so many Turks here in Turkey that do not only speak fluent German, but you can even choose the German dialect in which these Turkish friends speak, so I feel quite embarrassed that I have to talk in English to you. Nevertheless, I have the honor, the pleasure to talk to you about the European attitude and the German attitude towards the refugee crisis. This is not an easy task because there is nothing common in terms of refugee policies within the European Union, and the same is true for Germany as well. When we look at the European countries as a whole, each country is trying, as we have heard before from you, that please the refugees go on and do not stay in the country that they are passing through. We have the Balkan route, which is the most popular route for refugees. As you know, this route is less dangerous than taking the path through the Mediterranean, where many people have died from going to Italy from Libya. And of course, the Balkan countries that are being passed by the refugees from Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, and other parts are poor countries that are not really able to cope with the situation. Most of these countries they pass through, or some of them at least, are not even members of the European Union. So it is very difficult to deal for them with this challenge. At the same time, many Eastern European countries who have very much profited from European unification, they have received billions of dollars, of euros in funds, financial funds from Brussels. They have the attitude of saying we like to take the good things from Brussels, from the common idea of the European Union, but we do not really want to be bothered with the burdens that go along with common responsibility. This is especially true for countries like Poland and, of course, Hungary. Hungary was a country that created a huge chaos by building a fence, forcing refugees to take other routes. And of course, the main countries, we've heard it before, that host refugees, the main countries the refugees are interested in reaching are Germany, Austria, and Sweden. And all the countries along the route, they are of course very fearful that one day these three countries might indeed close their borders, because that would mean that the refugees would stay in the Balkan countries, and that would really take too much of a burden for these countries. Again, it is interesting to note that not only Eastern European countries like Poland, former Czechoslovakia, Hungary, and others are not interested in taking refugees. The same is also true for Great Britain and France. And this is all the more astonishing since these two countries share most of the responsibility for creating the refugee crisis in the first place. We should never forget that there is a reason for these refugees coming, and that is, of course, mainly the war in Syria, but also the events in Iraq after the toppling of Saddam Hussein that led to the destruction of Iraq as a central state. I don't want to go into details. I will do this later this afternoon, but it is interesting to note that most refugees come from those countries where military interventions of the West have taken place in the last years. Think about Afghanistan, think about Syria and Iraq. Libya is another country falling apart. I think it's just a matter of time until we will see large amounts of refugees coming from Egypt through Libya, heading towards Europe. Egypt is a very unstable country, and the future of that country is bleak, both economically and politically. So what we see today, what we observe in these failing states or failed states from the Middle East, is really the beginning of a Völkerwanderung, a march of nations, and it is really only the beginning. We are far from reaching the peak, and we will face this challenge for the next years to come. So it is all the more important to think about recipes to solve this challenge. And of course, one aspect should be that we rethink our foreign policies. Is it really a good idea to intervene militarily into other countries and then having to carry the burden of a huge refugee crisis? Europe mainly follows American ideas when it comes to foreign policy in the Middle East. The Americans, of course, do not really like the idea of taking refugees. They praise Chancellor Merkel of Germany for taking in so many refugees, and they send some blankets and tents to Germany, which is really nice indeed. But I think it would be, at least in theory, justified to send shiploads of refugees towards the Statue of Liberty in New York, because it was American foreign policy that created so many of these problems in the first place. And it is also not understandable that Great Britain, the big partner of the United States in the region that shared most of the fighting in Iraq, also refuses to take refugees beyond symbolical numbers, approximately 10,000. The same is true for France. So there are those three countries left that I mentioned before, Germany, Austria, and Sweden, that take in most of the refugees, but of course the numbers keep on growing, the numbers are not getting less, and it is only a question of time when public mood in these countries will change, and when this idea of welcoming refugees will also become problematic. There is a gap, there is a strong dissonance within German society in particular when it comes to dealing with the refugees. Large parts of the population believe that they should be hosted. Other parts of the population see the end of the Abendland, the land where the sun sets, and they believe that the end of Western civilization is near, and they are against this immigration. However, this immigration poses a challenge that is really the most severe challenge that Europe has seen since the end of the Cold War, one might even say since the end of World War II, because it afflicts all countries in Europe, and the European Union will have to be able to tackle this challenge. Should the European Union, should Brussels fail in dealing with this problem, should the European countries start to reintroduce border controls, should the Schengen agreements that call for open borders be dismissed, then the whole idea of Europe will be dismissed as well. And what we can observe today is really national egoism that is very strong, and everybody, as we have heard from you before, tries, of course, to put the burden upon others. And it is, of course, the basic idea of the European Union to ask Turkey to keep most of the refugees. Of course, in return, Turkey will receive lots of money. There might be a certain ease in travel restrictions and visa restrictions for Turkey, and there will certainly not be too much lust within the European Union to criticize the Turkish government in the future in terms of human rights. Nevertheless, this will not solve the issue. This will not solve the problem. Nobody has an answer of how to solve this problem. Millions of people coming, no end in sight. What do you do with so many people coming? It is not a problem to integrate those who have a good education, who speak several languages, who have been doctors, whatever, in their home countries, nurses, who have been skillful in their jobs. They can be integrated relatively easily, but there are also millions of people coming with very little skills, and it will be a very, very severe challenge to do something about them. Eastern European countries do not have a history of taking in refugees, and the national identities in countries like Poland are very much based upon religion, Catholicism, that is mainly in Poland, and you should also, and one should be aware of the fact that in Europe in general, there is a very strong Islamophobia, and of course, most of these refugees are Muslims by religion, so therefore it is very easy for right-wing populists or for right-wing leaning politicians to draw this black picture of Muslim immigrants coming and changing the nature of a given country. So Polish authorities, Polish politicians will tell you, we are ready to take in refugees from Ukraine, should they ever come, but we are not willing to host any refugees from the Middle East because they don't fit into our culture. And sometimes they use funny arguments saying that Polish is too difficult a language, and therefore the refugees it would be demanding too much from the refugees to learn this language. But of course the problem runs deeper than that. Let us take a look at the situation in Germany. As I mentioned, the situation regarding the refugees differs from country to country, but the general idea is, please, God, keep the refugees going, let them not stay in our country, they should go north and not stay with us. So what are the major issues in facing this refugee crisis in Germany? I mentioned before that the German society is split. It's difficult to call numbers, to give numbers. Most people, about 2/3, I would say, there are some statistics that indicate this. About 2/3 of the population in Germany are very skeptical about these large numbers of immigrants coming in, and they are fearful that the status quo in Germany, that the Germanness, if you wish, of Germany might change in the future. Of course, many of these fears are fears put forward by people who have no knowledge whatsoever with other cultures, with Muslims in general, leave alone with refugees. But it is, I guess, a natural phenomena when you live in a certain area and suddenly many refugees come. You feel challenged and people are scared, at least some of them are. And we have seen in several parts of Germany, mainly in the southeast, strong movements of right-wing populists who do everything they can to convince the German government to be more restrictive in dealing with this refugee crisis. Germany is a country that has no experience with immigration, with one big exception, of course, taking in all the German refugees, millions of them, more than 10 million after World War II, that had to leave the areas in Eastern Europe that are now Polish or Russian. But there's not a history in Germany of taking in immigrants. There's another exception that I should also add, although most Germans are not aware of this. 100 years ago, hundreds of thousands of Polish people, moved to the heavy industry in the West, mainly in the Ruhr area of Germany, where they worked in the emerging sectors of industry. And you will find many people with Polish names also in the German champion, the Bundesliga, when you look closely. But most people have forgotten that these people originally moved in 3 or 4 generations ago from Poland. So yes, in a way, Germany does have a tradition of immigration, but one is not very much aware of it. You all remember that it took until the late 1990s, until Turkish workers in Germany were not considered to be Gastarbeiter, guest workers any longer. There was always this idea of foreigners coming, working, paying taxes, but please, one day you go back home. And even today, when you look at the language, there's one word that is almost forbidden in Germany. Of course, it's not legally forbidden, but people don't use it. When we talk about all these people coming, they are normally called migrants. This is also true for people of Turkish origin working and living in Germany. Even they are considered to be migrants. I mean, from a logical point of view, one should consider them to be immigrants, because that's what they are. But the word migrant implies that these migrants will continue with their migration sometime in the future. They will not stay. So that's the more, if you wish, elaborate version of the guest worker. So many Germans, they still have a problem in accepting the idea that Germany is a major country of immigration. And especially the conservatives have never accepted this idea. And for them, they feel threatened by their Germanness, if you wish, by these huge numbers of refugees that are coming. Approximately 1 million are expected this year, and there will be others, 100,000 to follow in the next years to come. So that is a serious challenge, but it can be tackled. I mean, when we look at the history of the Americas, both Latin America and the United States, these are countries that lived and thrived on immigration, but of course they had a different self-understanding, whereas the Germans in their majority still believe in this idea of German blood being the common ground of German society. So what we lack in Germany is really a certain cosmopolitan approach, if you wish. At the same time, there are lots of racist prejudices in German society against all kinds of people, against blacks, against Muslims, against people who do not come from Germany. There's also racist attitudes towards Eastern Europeans. And this, how shall I say, this crude racism that you find in poorer parts and segments of society is being met by an Islamophobia in the, how shall I call them, educated circles in German society. Islam is not cool. It's not being considered as that by most parts of German population, and this is also true for other European countries as well. The general connotation that people have when they hear the word Islam is simply backwardness, radicality, terrorism, violence, not fitting into the fabric of Western European democratic societies. And this is a very, very strong feeling that is shared by many intellectuals, and it is quite amazing to see that even well-known, well-reputed writers and people of public standing propagate ideas that are really quite absurd. I'll give you one example only. There is a German writer by the name of Boto Strauss who published an article some weeks ago in the German news magazine Der Spiegel, and in this article he made the following statement. He said, you are all aware of the city of Palmyra, this historic ancient heritage site in Syria, one of the most brilliant Roman ruins in the Middle East. Palmyra, the city, was conquered by the Islamic State some time ago, and the Islamic State has started to destroy Palmyra because it's considered to be an area of unbelievers, and they destroy it step by step. So that's really a tragedy for human mankind because it's human heritage. So this man, Boto Strauss, said, we also have our own Palmyra in Germany due to the immigration of so many refugees. They do the same to us, to the German fabric of society, as does the Islamic State to the fabric of Syria. This is, of course, quite an absurd comparison, but it's one that goes well within intellectual circles. If you look at Islam from a differentiated angle, you are being looked upon with a certain suspicion, because everybody knows, and when you listen to the news in Germany these days, you find all kinds of people. The head of the police union, you will hear politicians, and they all give you psychological approaches saying that, well, there are so many Muslim immigrants now, they are all testosterone-oriented, they have too much energy, and they are a danger for German women, and they are not willing to integrate, etc., etc. So there is this general fear of, here comes the strange guys, and women, beware of your daughters. This is, of course, very dangerous because when you are a simple-minded person, this appears to be an apology for using violence against immigrants. And we have seen so many places for immigrants burn in these last months that it is quite worrisome, and yet very few of these arsonists have been brought to justice, and only one has been sentenced to jail, only one. And at least 60 houses that were prepared for refugees have been burned so far, and there's something burning almost every week. I don't want to continue for too long, but there is one argument that I still want to make because I find it very important. The aspect of how do we deal with immigrants is not just a matter of intellectuality on whether you're open-minded towards foreigners, on whether you understand the misery of people who have to flee their homeland due to wars that we helped to create in the first place. But there's also another aspect to it. Let us not forget that many people in Germany and in Europe in general suffer from the ordeals of neoliberalism. There are many working poor in a country like Germany. It's a wealthy country, but still there are millions of people who barely make ends meet. And they have a hard time in finding a cheap housing, in finding jobs. And even if they have a job, let's say working for McDonald's, they earn so little that they still need social support in order to, make ends meet, in order for their family to live a halfway decent life.
Dr. Ludus, just 1 minute. You have 1 minute. Last 1 minute.
Yeah, I'm almost through. When you imagine that you have millions of people in Germany, and not only there, the same is true for France, for Italy and other countries, you have millions of people who consider themselves to be the losers of neoliberalism, of the new capitalist order, if you wish. Why should these people welcome immigrants that are also poor, and that these immigrants will compete for the same jobs and for the same cheap houses that they yearn for, that they have to fight in order to keep? So this is really a social issue, and nobody has an answer to the question what will happen in the future. I think there are two options. Either politics will be able to find a compromise between the competing interests in Germany and in other European countries, or we will see a massive confrontation between right-wing propagandists, ultra-right-wingers, among them also those who use violence against Muslims, against immigrants, and those who try to defend themselves. I mean, should the Muslims have the refugees have the impression that they are not welcome, that they do not have a future in Germany or elsewhere, they will also resort to funny ideas, and this will then really become very dangerous. So there are challenging times ahead. I think the problems are solvable, but we need a change of our mindsets, and whether or not this is possible remains to be seen. I'm not overly optimistic, but I hope for the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Dr. Ludus. Dr. Ludus. Dr. Ludus da Almanya'da göçmenlere bakış hakkında gerçekten aydınlatıcı bir sunuş yaptı. Şu anda Almanya Avrupa Birliği
The immigrants, since there is no political initiative taken by the European Union, German will probably take the lead. I mean, according to the observations of the experts, Germany may take the lead, but due to the reasons mentioned by Dr. Luders, racism is, for example, a very big problem regarding the refugees, or being not familiar with the refugees, or not strong but weak political left wing can also be a reason. So how determined and how fast can we find a solution? There are still many questions to answer, but it is quite early to give answers to all the questions. Of course, I believe you have some questions. I will not ask a question, but we can start the question and answer session immediately. We have 40 minutes until the end. Please keep your questions short. And while you're asking the question, please introduce yourself. Thank you. Let's get the first question from you.
Teşekkürler. Giray Sadık Yıldırım
Thank
Beyazıt
you very much.
Üniversitesi
My name is
öğretim
Giray
üyesiyim.
Sadık. I come from Yıldırım Beyazıt University. I'm a faculty
başarılı
member.
organizasyon için teşekkürler.
First of all, I would like to
konuşmacıların,
congratulate you on your successful
yeniden
organization.
konuşmaları için de ayrıca
And the
teşekkürler.
speakers, I would like to thank them as well for their
Türkiye'den olan
appropriate
misafirlerimize
talks.
Türkçe soracağım.
I have a Turkish question to Turkish guests and English question to to German guests, and I will try to be brief.
Öncelikle Emre Gönen
First
Hocam.
of all,
Bu tabii
Emre
Sayın
Gönen,
Hoca'yla da
the
alakalı
lecturer from Bilgi University. This question concerns the MP as well, but you said the EU-Turkey mixed coalition. I think it's understandable why Mr. Istanbul MP of AK Party, Mr. Mehmet Uğur Ekinci, can be shown as a candidate to that council because he is quite open and frank. Second of all, Turkey currently has more than 2 million Syrians. We are hosting more than 2 million Syrians. We have to mention this frequently. But how much should this be integrated into the recent reports and agreements of the European Union with the Turkey? I mean, not just people who are using Turkey as a transition country and marching towards Europe, but also those who stay in Turkey should receive European support as well. This question can be to
And
me.
now I would like
as
to
well.
ask you directly with the last question. Thank you for your thought-provoking presentation. First, the overarching question. To what extent do you think the EU, or Germany for that matter of fact, approach to Turkey in this refugee crisis is a strategic and long-term one, or just saving the day and a short-term band-aid approach? Second, you mentioned Islamophobia is rising, which your observation is very timely. In that regard, you also mentioned that there is racism rising in Europe. Which one do you think is more of a problem for EU and more of a threat? And in that regard, to overcome that threat, I mean Islamophobia, racism, do you think EU needs more Muslims or less Muslims? Thank you.
Teşekkürler. Soruları almaya devam edelim. Daha sonra toplu cevap alacağız. Buradaki hanımefendiye ulaştırabilir miyiz?
You, by answering them.
Merhabalar, Uluslararası Strateji
Hello.
Araştırmalar Kurumu,
International Strategic Research Institution. I'm the head of the Center for Scientific Research. My name is Elif. Regarding the visit of Tsipras, regarding the Turkey-Greece cooperation, what can it have a role on the EU relations of Turkey? I can get comments from all speakers regarding the visit of Tsipras, the Greece minister, to Turkey. I'm a journalist, and the MP, Mr. Yeneroğlu, mentioned, and I would be glad if Michal Ludas can answer this question. It was, if we agree to the action plan, then the language can be differentiated, they said. But Dr. Ludas, how do you evaluate this kind of negotiation? And my second question is for Mustafa Yeneroğlu and Emre Gönen. The draft action plan. Even if Turkey agrees to the draft action plan, it will not be ineffective. It will not help at all. Some institutions say that it will not be enough. Some European institutions say that the draft action plan will not be enough. Do you think it's a realistic approach? How do you see that?
Yani Suriyeli mültecilerin yerleştirilmesi konusunda yani
Regarding the settlement of the Syrian refugees, from all perspectives, it is written in some reports that the draft action plan will be ineffective. Let's paraphrase the question and say that what can be the solution? Yes, please. Zafer Sağıroğlu, Yıldırım Beyazıt University Center for Migration Policies. My first question is to Dr. Luders. Dr. Luders mentioned that up to 2/3 of the German society has prejudice against the migrants. This is a risky area for a politician, but Angela Merkel said that they can normalize or legalize approximately 800,000 refugees. Behind that, there is a respectful human rights aspect. And on the other hand, there's another discussion in Germany, as far as I can follow from the media. They believe that Germany will have a disadvantageous demographic structure, have a demographic structure, and these migrants will close the loopholes and gaps in the labor market. And there are some financial motivations behind the decision of Merkel, according to some discussions. What can you say about it? My second question is to Mr. Emre Gönen. In this negotiation process of Turkey, visa liberalization will be exchanged by the readmission agreement. But right after that, the limitations on the geographical issues will be abolished after the Geneva Convention. This is one of the criticisms that Turkey receives from time to time. I mean, as you know, Turkey is not granting refugee status. And there is a demand for this today. And I believe this demand will increase in Turkey. And in the second part of this negotiation between Turkey and EU, maybe Turkey will be. Europe is trying to make Turkey a storage of refugees. 2 million, I don't think it's a big number. When we compare ourselves with the number of people from Syria, Iraq, and Africa, and when we look at the whole borders of the Europe, that number can be 5 million, 10 million, not just 2 million. And to Mustafa Yeneroğlu, the Istanbul MP of AK Party, I have a question. More than 300,000 of the Syrians are 0 to 4-year-old children. Some born here, some born there, but came here. These are stateless, homeless children, no state, no government. And the literature says that even after 10 years, these people will not go back. So as a government, what do you think to do? A status of citizenship or status of something else? What will be the solution of those children, of those people? The last question of this session. Yes, please.
My name is Bassem Khafagi, National Political Academy in Egypt. I have a question to the respected MP. When we talk about this issue of refugee, we have three sides to it. There is a country that they live from, there is a transfer place, and there is a destiny. You talked about the last two, but my question is, what's happening in the country where they live from? In the intellectual circles in Egypt and the Arab world, there is a discussion about evacuating or evicting Syria, changing the demographics of Syria, especially in the north. What is the role, what is Turkey is doing regarding this? You talked about what's Turkey is doing as far as a transfer and as far as the destination. But what about changing the demographics in Syria? Is that true? Is that happening? What's your political position on this? Are we assisting what Condoleezza Rice talked about 10 years ago about the constructive chaos? Or what is it? I would like to hear the Turkish position on this. And my question to Mr. Michael is about, you mentioned in the situation, a passing comment about Egypt, but it interests me, of course, when you mentioned that there is a potential of immigration coming from Egypt all the way to Germany. Do you see the situation in Egypt as failing as something close to the situation of Syria and stuff like that? Thank you.
Çok teşekkürler. Görüyorsunuz çok farklı perspektiften konuya yaklaşıldığı için farklı perspektiflerden sorular alıyoruz.
Different perspectives we receive from different questions, but I kindly request the speakers to answer briefly. Let's start by the MP.
Tamam, bu sefer iyi. Eylem planının daha efektif olması için ne olabilir diye.
For the action plan to be more effective,
Şimdi ben temelde zaten onun üzerinde durdum.
well, fundamentally, this was the core of my speech. The philosophy of the action plan is problematic. The point of view of the action plan is so problematic that you, in parallel with the action plan, do not want to improve your relationship with your opponent. You are just placing Turkey as something, not a candidate, but Turkey is a country outside of European Union, but delegated and assigned to protect European Union. And as far as Turkey protects European Union, Turkey will be honored by EU. Honored by what? Honored by something that is already naturally a right of Turkey. And European Union bringing these topics to the agenda today is a sign of
Ölçülerini de ciddi manada zorlayan bir şey.
the fact that they are also pushing their measures. Sincerity is not a term that is used in politics, but they are pushing their sincerity limits today. This is what I'm criticizing, but I'm not only the one who is criticizing. Dr. Luders also mentioned the situation in Europe, in Germany. These issues are being criticized in Europe as well. The fundamental philosophy should change, and only after that we will be able to discuss how we can lighten the burden on the shoulders of Turkey, how we can share the responsibility with European countries with cause and effect perspective. For example, I mean, the changing demographic structure of the Middle East on one hand, and the reasons why those people are becoming immigrants. I mean, some countries in the world are causing reasons in the Middle East so that those people are left as migrants, but then those responsible countries are not taking responsibility to make an amendment, you know, to make peace.
Ama ciddi manada nüfusuna oranla yük
For
almış
example,
bir ülke. Mülteciler noktasında
some northern European countries, although they have very small population, are shouldering the burden, and they have agreements for that. For example, Dublin Agreement was mentioned. Apart from that, regarding Turkey, some EU negotiations or partnership agreements, in all of them, I believe sincerity should be the basis, and then the burden should be shared by different countries to yield some healthy results. And the long-term interest of the European Union as well is this. Otherwise, by only burying the problems into Turkish land, this will close the perspective of the European Union, openly declaring that you are closing the perspective of the European Union, and it's not a long-run solution. And Emre also mentioned the Greece example. I mean, without overcoming or without overcoming this complex communication issues, we cannot be successful. There are so many joint and common problems of Greece and Turkey, you cannot believe it. Therefore, the visit of Tsipras is exceeding the past perspectives of Greece and acknowledging the common and joint problems between Turkey and Greece, so it's positive, I believe. Apart from that, there was a question regarding the integration policy towards Syrians in Turkey. When I said experience of migration, I meant something else, dear Emre Gönen. A country receiving migration, do they accept the migrants as their own or as others? Because this will answer the questions of integration policies. For hundreds of years, in the Ostrom, in the east region of Germany, there are minorities living in Germany, and the policies towards them are different because those people were accepted as the primary element of the country. That's what I meant. Before the Republic of Turkey, the Ottoman Empire carried out a similar policy, but modern immigration policy we did not have. They are two different things. The Ottoman Empire did something else, something different.
Devletin kendisi kendi asli unsuru olarak kabul etti.
Because the state accepted the migrants as the primary element of the country, coming from another country, speaking a different language.
Unsurları çok farklı değerlendirip ona yönelik
But having a different religion, having a different nationality can differentiate the immigration and integration policies. Apart from emigration, I do not mean Ottoman Empire, I mean the experience after the foundation of the Turkish Republic. But the people you mean partially spoke Turkish, partially communicated with Turkish people. And you see assimilation, like Fener, like Balat, like Rani Margules, like Jews from Spain. Even 400 years later, the housewives speak Hebrew with Spanish accent in 1940s, but they are no longer existing. What I meant was the modern immigration policies which we lack. Apart from that, Turkey, due to its position and strength, should review its migration policies, and new legal regulations should be framed, and the qualified migration can be attracted to Turkey. We should think about this. I mean, we should compete with countries who are attracting the qualified migrants, and the majority of the already migrated Syrians, towards them, legal regulations should be reviewed, because I believe the current legal framework is insufficient, and in the future, the government will make this primary agenda in the following days, and we will offer our solutions and recommendations within our councils and boards. Regarding the status and citizenship question, I don't think this is a very primary problem. Yes, in the long run there should be a solution, but it will be covered within the process in time, because suddenly giving the status of citizenship will not be healthy at all. Different country examples can be taken into consideration as example, but the protective status should be given. It is not only for the age group between 0 to 4. They are not stateless, by the way. Legally speaking, they are Syrians. Maybe de facto they cannot enjoy their Syrian rights. Therefore, we should not think that those people are stateless. No. For example, 2 million something people came, and 600,000 of them are school-aged children and young people. These people should be, in a healthy way, integrated into Turkish society. Because Mr. Luders knows that I fight so much for the word of integration. Integration rings different bells in my brain, because integration reminds me assimilation in the Eastern Europe. But Turkey should follow a more modern policy. It should also look at Turkey should also look past the Ottoman Empire times, in which so many different nationals were living together with high tolerance levels. Apart from that, regarding the change of the Syrian demographic structure, the position of Turkey, or the fundamental approach of Turkey, should create the basis of the negotiation between Turkey to Europe as well. Why are these people migrating to West? It's because of the humanitarian agony that is going on in Iraq, in Syria, and Afghanistan. During Arab Spring, the dictators were supported for stability, and after the reform, we know the post-situation in Egypt, so you know our position, you know our attitude. So considering all of these things, I believe especially the northern part of Syria can change its demographic structure, and Turkey can fight against these issues in the long run. For this reason, basically, Turkey, in its negotiations with the Western Europe, should focus on the results and restoring peace in Syria. Turkey is very sensitive about restoring peace in Syria, but unfortunately we cannot come a long way. We cannot make great achievements. We have to face this. The current situation in Syria is unspeakably terrible, and in the future, in the following time, even more refugees may come to Turkey and force the doors of even more Western countries. Therefore, the policy of Turkey is quite clear. Fundamentally, the majority of the Syrian public should be taken into consideration by protecting the rights of the minorities in Syria. But the ethnic structure in Syria somehow changing via migration and is being transformed by those forces who are having a war in there. What can be done after this? It's not a question that can be answered in 2 minutes. I have to talk and talk. But it's a very good, important question, and thank you very much. Yes. I will not repeat what distinguished MPs said. There are some, for example, the Mixed Parliamentary Commission. Why are there so many Greek and Greek Cypriot representatives in the Turkish parliament? Well, the political relations can only be accepted within the framework of policies. In the European Parliament, you cannot create a group from this group and from that group MPs. Or they have to support the same political agenda with at least 30 people, with at least 7 nationals. Just like our political parties, they create groups in the European Parliament, and the important decisions are made by the groups. And in less important issues, those who wish act however they wish. This mixed commission was created and is very important to accelerate the accession of Turkey into Europe during 1970s. Other parliamentary commissions of Europe consist of 12 people, but the mixed parliamentary commission has 18 members each, and each member has a deputy member, and they can participate in the meetings. When there is good participation, it is a common parliamentary group of 70 people in which important topics can be discussed. The common commissions gather twice a year, But due to the primary decisions of our agreements, the common mixed parliamentary commission gathers 3 times a year. I don't know how many years passed by since the last decision was made, but I have never seen any decision made in that mixed commission since 1980s, 85 I guess. For that reason,
Avrupa Birliği ile üst düzeydeki siyasi ilişkilerinde yaşanan zafiyet
the weakness of the relationship between the senior authorities of Turkey and the European Union is reflected on the mixed parliamentary commission. But before that, they were doing some things negatively just to annoy us. For example, one of the smallest groups in the European Union is the United left-wing group with Greens, etc. There are German MPs, I mean, the former Communist Party members in the former Parliament of Germany were represented in that commission, especially in the eastern states. They receive most of the votes. Another one of them is that a girl, a member of PKK, the terrorist group, is shown and allocated as a candidate, as a deputy head of the commission. I mean, imagine the worst time we were fighting against PKK and people were dying all the time. I mean, of course, today the situation is not different that much, but somehow different. I mean, you go there to talk about European Union and a girl, a member of PKK, is sitting in front of you. These things are normal. These are the policy things, political things. I mean, if you are going to be a part of a political combat, then you will have to face the meaningful aspects of democracy, reaching up to provocation. And the same person was selected to the council, I guess. Not the same, but similar people. Not similar. The same girl. She was elected to the Turkish parliament in the last elections in June 7th. And regarding the visit of Tsipras, Alexis Tsipras taking the office and being in power in Greece created news in Turkey. There is a new, and I think it lasted only 3 months. Regarding the Aegean Sea, during 1970s, the Greek people had a motto. They used to say that the Mediterranean Sea belongs to fish. And Alexis Tsipras used the same phrase, and when he was under pressure a lot, he is not changing his attitude, which is similar to the conventional and traditional Greek attitude, unfortunately. Due to the structure of the Greek government, if you look who is in charge of foreign relations ministry, I don't see a big difference. I don't see a big opening. What is the meaning behind his steps towards Turkey? Turkey is a big country. Although unrightful, etc., Turkey again should take a step towards Greece. If Turkey takes the political responsibility, then serious steps can be taken, because up until today, even more serious steps were taken. It is doable. But I do not expect a serious reaction from Greece in the short run. The Greek air forces is designed to stop an invasion of Turkey on Greek islands. It is very difficult for Greeks to find the necessary equipment to launch their aircraft. Very expensive planes can, for example, fall into Aegean Sea because of the conflict between Turkey and Greece. We are not like Korea. Come on, this is just like a lack of responsibility. We have to leave this behind. And Turkey, to be frank, is the country who has to take a step forward. And I'm telling this to the MP on my right side. And Turkey
zannediyorum çok ciddi imgesini yükseltici bir rol oynayacaktır.
should play a role to improve its position in the eyes of the European Union as well. And lastly, regarding the wording of the report, I mean, if you ask me, the wording and language of the report is not that much suffering, that much bad. So please do not worry about this very much. I don't know why he mentioned this, but I mean, I don't know. I guess when you're an MP, you have to careful about everything.
Tabii. Şimdi bu fasılların rapora göre 17 tanesi
Okay.
açılabilir abi.
17 of these chapters can be opened according to the report, and the only reason why it's not opened is because the Greek Cypriot vote as no. I mean,
görüşmeler yapıyor, dönüyor. Ondan sonra
during the weekend they make serious agreements, and then they say that we cannot convince the Greek part of Cyprus.
ilkelerine aykırıdır.
This is against the founding principles of European Union, and even European Union is experiencing in itself serious problems. And finally, the concerns and limitations of the Geneva Convention and Turkey. I mean, legally speaking, we are only accepting asylum seekers from the Western world, which is a law from the Second World War. It remains. And in the additional protocol, it is mentioned the free circulation of the Turkish workers, but there is no vice versa. There is no thing, such thing like European workers can free circulate in Turkey. Why? Because in 1960 the biggest fear of Turkey is the Italian workers coming to Turkey, because Italians were jobless and unemployed. When I was a child, there were club cigarettes in Italy. Imagine a cartoon, a box, and it was quite common in Italy. They were asking cigarettes or everyone who comes from Italy, but they were unemployed. So mutually, some agreements can be conducted. If Turkey grants refugee rights, I don't think more number of refugees will come here. Turkey is not an attractive country. People come to Turkey to save their lives. Today we have 2 million, tomorrow maybe we will have 5 million, but this number is not related with the legal status we can grant. For example, the Spanish people were granted the refugee right by France in 1939, but today Manuel Valls, the Prime Minister of France, is Spanish. I mean, he doesn't like it when we say it, but he became French when he was 18. So what we need to discuss is the identity problem in Turkey. You cannot expect things from one party or one group. It's all about how these people will be living under the identity issues. If we do nothing, I mean forget everything, we have a enormous Kurdish problem. And everybody should think about this. Every political party should take responsibility. Every thinking scholar society should think about it. Every NGO, everybody should talk about this vital issue. But unfortunately, because we are fighting against each other, we cannot have a civil discussion. I don't know, have you ever heard any civil thing about who wants to do what about Syrian refugees? Everybody has an opinion. On the TV, everybody is talking, but I have never heard any concrete solution about what to do for Syrians from anyone, any political party in Turkey. So we need a serious consensus first, And consensus cannot be created from today to tomorrow. First we have to try and fail, Even if we change the Geneva Convention, the Syrians will stay here or not. Even if we grant citizenship or not, they will stay here or not. Doesn't matter. Am I being clear? I mean, somehow these are secondary measures, but primarily we should decide how we are going to live in this country. Sorry, I exceeded my time. I'm sorry.
Dr. Luders, the floor is yours.
Dr. Luders, the floor is yours.
Yeah, well, I mean, unfortunately, the issue is so complex, and there are no easy solutions to be found. Some weeks ago, the German Chancellor said, in view of the many refugees coming to Germany, wir schaffen das, we can make it. And she has not repeated this phrase ever since, mainly due to strong opposition from her own party. The conservatives in Germany believe that the refugee crisis is one that will change the basic statute of Germany, and they are opposed to these refugees. And almost every day new ideas pop up, and all these ideas are circling around the question, how can we make life difficult for refugees who are already in Germany or those who might come in the future? And one of the issues that is being discussed now, very controversially, is the following question. The Minister of the Interior, he had suggested that refugees from from Syria should only be granted a temporary status to stay in Germany for a period of 1 year without any option to have his family come to Germany as well. To me, this is the best recipe to create chaos. What we need for refugees is a perspective. Whether we like it or not, these refugees, they came, they continue to come, and they will stay. It is an illusion to assume that they will return to Syria. Maybe their children, grandchildren will be able to do that once the situation has calmed down. But these refugees, they will stay, and it is not a solution to the problem to send them back to Turkey, Bulgaria, or any other country. We need to tackle these issues, and it is possible to do that. So the Chancellor was right. But there is this split in public opinion that I have mentioned, 2/3 of Germans being very skeptical and reserved towards this mass immigration. And then there are others, you have mentioned it in your in the question that you asked. There's a demographic problem in Germany, and of course the economic chambers in Germany, they're very happy about this immigration. Not for unselfish reasons, but they see huge potential of people that are going to work, that are going to pay taxes, and so there are benefits to that as well. Certainly one should not be naive. Not all of those coming are skilled laborers. There will be many that we need they need an education in order to be able to get a hold in Europe. But I think what is needed is really strong action by all responsible authorities to give these people a chance to take roots in Europe. If we fail in doing so, these 100,000s of people, maybe millions of people, who have the impression that there's no future for them in Europe, they will organize themselves according to the patterns they know from home. That means gangs, tribal, clan alliances, and this will then be a serious challenge. There will be parallel societies, and this is not to the benefit of anyone. We need to be careful not to create a situation in which violence, and I don't want to use the word civil war, that would be a strong exaggeration, but nowadays in Germany you can go anywhere by night, well, almost anywhere. I don't know whether I would do it if I were wearing a headscarf. I don't know if I would, want to visit Dresden by night. But apart from that, it's still okay. But should the situation deteriorate, it might become dangerous to enter certain areas, and this is certainly the worst that we can expect and experience. Integration, this is something that many Europeans, many Germans have not really understood to this very day, although we have a long history of immigration since the 1960s. For most Germans, integration simply means that the foreigner who comes has to become German. And he should, finish with his own biography. He should learn how to drink beer, and he should do all these things Germans do, eat Wurst and other things. But that's a wrong perception. Integration always is a two-way road. It's not a one-way road. It means that integration, of course, especially when you have hundreds, thousands or millions of people coming in, changes the society to which these refugees come. And this is something that I consider positive. I mean, this is what life is all about. Life is always changing, and it is an illusion to think one can draw back the wheels of history. It's not possible. So integration also means that people in the host society, so to speak, are willing to accept the stranger, the so-called stranger, as an enrichment of the society he himself lives in. And this is a thinking that is very new in Germany. Very few people would think that way. Most people don't. In Berlin, of course, larger cities, there is more openness, but when you come to what we call the flat country, opinions are quite different in that respect. Germany, many European countries, lack a cosmopolitan experience, and social problems overlap with identity problems. And we need to answer the question how we want to organize our societies in terms of giving work to people. Many of these refugees will work in cheap labor parts of society, but less and less cheap labor is being needed due to the automation of the working area. And so it's a major challenge. Nobody has a clear answer to it, but there's also no willingness, it seems, on large parts of politicians, of intellectuals, and of the citizenry in general, to take up the challenge, to live up to the challenge. The general attitude is fear. Germans love to be fearful, and therefore, this is of course a great reason to say I'm fearful for my future, this and that. I am not fearful for my future because I think I see the positive signs of this immigration. I'm not naive. I also see the dangers and the risks, but I'm much more afraid of this political right-wing extremists that are developing now in Germany and elsewhere than I'm afraid of Syrian refugees. Last word. The relationship between the European and Turkey is, of course, a very complex one that will be an issue on its own. I think the position of Turkey and the position of President Erdogan, the Turkish government, has been strengthened due to recent events. And this is, of course, a bargaining chip. Will this mean that Turkey gets access to the European Union? I doubt so. The conservatives, both in Germany and France, are strictly opposed to this. But Turkey will definitely receive many benefits, and that includes also an easing of travel restrictions. I could imagine that the visa applications become much easier, and they might be abolished at all. Very last word, you asked about Egypt. Yes, that's a topic on its own, so I only invest 2 sentences on this. Yes, I'm very pessimistic about the future of Egypt due to the political repression in that country and the lack of an economic perspective for wide parts of the population. I'm not talking about the upper class and the business projects they do with their friends from the Gulf countries. I'm talking about the middle classes and the poorer segments of society. They have very difficult times ahead, very little economic perspectives, and this combined with political repression is a recipe for turmoil, and I'm very much afraid that things in Egypt will not go well. I give this country another 3 to 5 years, and then violence will erupt because people are simply too poor to take up with the situation. Half of the population in Egypt, 40 million people approximately, live on less than $1 a day. That's not enough, and it's really a catastrophe. And unfortunately, what does my country do, Germany? The German Ministry of the Interior, he now sent German policemen to Egypt to train the riot police in crushing the opposition in that country. That's a very stupid approach. I don't understand this. It seems that politicians are not able to learn from their mistakes. The same mistakes that were done with other countries in the area are being repeated over and over again, because in Europe people believe we just need a strong man at the top of a given country, and then people will stay quiet and they will not flee. This is all what we care about, more or less. Of course, the flow of oil is also important, but other than that, forget about the freedom and so on talk. it will not work. We need to reinvent ourselves, our thinking and our policy making, and if we do not do this, we will miserably fail, and then we have turmoil in Europe as well. The problems of the Middle East have become problems for Turkey and for Europe as well, and we need to think in larger terms and frameworks. If we don't do this, we will fail, and we will have serious problems in the years and decades to come.
Çok teşekkür ederiz. Düşünce kuruluşlarından genelde kısa vadede çözüm bulmaları
To
istenir.
find a
Geçenlerde
solution,
aslında bir düşünce
but another society said that a long-term solution is a dream. Inevitably, as fast as possible, a concrete solution should be obtained. So we, I think, should take concrete steps. Unfortunately, we are out of time. Therefore, I will not be able to take any more questions. Primarily our speakers and panelists, and to you, I would like to thank you very much for being here. Hope to see you next in the next panel. Thank you.